But legislators have not been renowned for using research to make decisions. A lot of their decisions are based on what do I think those people will vote for me if I make that decision. And as one North Georgia chicken raiser told me, he said, the name of the game, sir, is re-election. I said, I got it. He said, I'm your friend. I will do anything you ask me, raise money, change a law, unless it comes between me and one of my constituents. I said, I got it. So in Connecticut, they had a study by John Sanford he's a law professor at Stanford University in California. He looked, a real research effort. He looked at the last 34 years in Connecticut and who was on death row. He had judges to look at every case, whether it went to death row, but a murder case, every capital punishment, potential capital punishment case. And he had it judged based on how egregious that crime was. I mean, was there torture or pain or what went on during the murder? And the results were that those on death row and those who were not ever sentenced to death, there was no marked difference between the egregiousness of their case. That's important because in Furman, the case that Supreme Court case that reinstituted the death penalty, it says that there has to be a meaningful basis for distinguishing those who are executed or are sentenced for death and those who are not. And what he found was, of the 32 cases judged as the most horrific, egregious cases of all the ones they reviewed, only one of those cases resulted in the death penalty. So like almost every other state, if you wanted to analyze, everybody went to, there were so many other factors besides how horrific that case was. If you've seen the research just on the selection of juries and how that impacts whether you get the death penalty or not. Whether a prosecutor goes after the death penalty in almost every murder case. Some do and some don't. You've all heard it. Some 5-year-old commits a crime and they say, I'm gonna persecute him as an adult. A lot of that, and I know we have some prosecutors or ex-prosecutors and some attorneys in here. But anyway, Connecticut took that research and abolished the death penalty. That gave me more hope than anything I've seen in several years. That was just last year. Is it only for the guilty? See, when I executed people, they always told me they were innocent. I wasn't there. I wasn't in court. I didn't know whether they were innocent or not. Let that weigh on your mind a little bit. So far, in the last decade, with the beginning of the Innocence Project and DNA tests, 135 have been on death row have been found innocent. It's averaging between 73 and 99, 3 exonerated per year. Between 2000 and 2011, 5 exonerated per year. That didn't give you a lot of faith when you're the executioner. If you're doing it for any of those reasons, revenge, retribution, or you really think it's going to deter somebody, and I used to try to justify it. I always thought, well, if this would deter just and save one victim, maybe I'm justified in doing what I'm doing. But I always weighed that because I've interviewed thousands of inmates in my career. I've been told a lot of stories, some of them true, some of them false. I knew for a fact that we had some innocent people in my prison. No, it's not. We have a lot of evidence that those on death row and those who have been executed, not all of them were guilty. Is it non-discriminatory? There's a lot of research on this. I'm not going to quote it all to you. Over 75% of the murder victims in cases resulting in execution were white. Nationally, only 50% of murder victims are white. Persons executed for interracial murders, white defendant, black victim, 19. Black defendant, white victim, 255. I don't want to go stand for that judge with the black skin. All right, then, is the judicial system, if we're going to have capital punishment, is the judicial system fair and equitable to everybody? I know I have ex-prosecutors, some attorneys out here, and some who defend death cases. But courts and the whole system are run by human beings. And I'm the only perfect person I know. Most of us are flawed. There's so many other factors. If you see all the research on just a given state and where the death penalties come from, sometimes it's only one county, one prosecutor. If you really examine the research on the makeup of juries and how juries are selected and how that impacts on whether somebody gets the death penalty or not. And then if you're the executioner and you know those things and you have to pull a switch, it's a whole different experience. Now, I know several attorneys who work for very little trying to defend these people. Some of them are very good attorneys. But it's not like O.J. Simpson, who can afford to hire the 5 finest attorneys in the country, defend him on a case where DNA said the chances he didn't do it were about 3 billion to 1. And he was found not guilty because if it don't fit, you can't convict. His civil trial, it was much easier to prove that he killed him. The other thing is our image in the world. Does that matter? The United States is in very good company on who has the death penalty. We're right there with Iran, Iraq, and China. All the Western European nations and Canada think they're civilized and they've abolished the death penalty. We're still hanging in there, by golly. I said I wasn't trying to sell. I must feel something about this, but